very tagged back to what people are interested in. And that's where, when brands really bring that together, we see their organic growth rates just skyrocket, almost 5 to 10x. And that's where the real big impact happens. And then you can go and amplify those things with paid and make them go 10 times faster.
And Michele, at Shoutlet, you guys, as a social media management system and one of the most technologically advanced at that, you guys are really the hub of all the owned media, and you're seeing how different types of content can lead to different earned and paid campaigns. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing owned was where we started, and that has developed obviously into earned. So with our tool, the owned portion of your social networks, and then the earned has been very important, as we talked about and earlier, the difference between owned and earned. Recently, we have been seeing a lot of the budgets that have been going to paid come over to the community management space, which typically handle the owned and earned. So we have developed our tool to add in paid. So again, that amplification that happens with the good content for owned, then it goes into the earned, and you can make the earned even better with the paid. So a lot of our brands, like I said, the budgets are moving. They're using our new tool to do some of the sponsored stories, promoted posts. And if they really want to amplify things, we have actually partnered with Kenshoo. And we do have a case study we were going to talk about. I'll let patients do that. That you're now able to track the relevance of your owned and earned and paid all together, and use that data to make better owned from the relevancy that you're getting, whether it's revenue, whether it's call to actions, which I think is where we want to go and what this whole convergence is about.
So just to be clear, you're using the data and analytics that you get within the social media management system to inform future content that you create.
Correct. So the data's coming back in, and they're making decisions on what to amplify on earned, or what to amplify on paid. And the numbers are astounding that they're actually tracking and, changing content. Like a lot about what Jeff talked about is, using the content you have that people are reacting on and amplifying that to make the better conversions.
So, and just out of curiosity, what's the type of thing that you can learn? Like a red graphic is better than a blue graphic, a certain type of copy performs better than others. What are you seeing clients do with their content?
So they're seeing what content is reacting better. A lot of it has to do with revenue, which is a big driver. It doesn't have to be, but if they're seeing that revenue on certain owned and earned, then they're going to go ahead and amplify that via the paid solution, and their numbers even go up more.
Cool.
We expand upon that and actually listening into the entire social graph to go and identify topical interests that are there for a brand. So if I'm a yogurt company and somebody just released a brand new study on active yeast cultures and the health benefits of it, I want to go grab my white paper I've done on it, and I want to share those. We surface those trending topics back for the brand that are interesting, relevant to what's happening globally back to them, and marry it back to their own content so that they can go grab onto that real-time event, get closer to that event, and just jump right in.
Patients, Michele told us a little bit about what you guys are doing in your partnership and some of the really cool things you're doing to attribute social media success and ROI to any given post or owned and earned content to help inform paid. Can you give us a little more insight on how that actually works?
Yeah, so not only is Kenshoo an SPMD of Facebook, as you all learned about today, what that means, so we've built best-in-class paid search and paid social marketing tools, but we also go into our clients thinking of ourselves as a partner. So we're really interested in okay, this is our core competency is paid, but what are you doing on your own side? Because as you've heard from Michele and Joe, it all starts from your content, right? So Facebook says your page is mission control. If the content's not good, your ad's not going to be good, and no matter how much money you put through our platform, it's not going to be successful. So we've worked to identify best-in-class partners to work with that extend out beyond the paid, and we have innovated and figured out ways in which to track all of those channels. And one way in which we're doing this with Shoutlet is we can now track your posts or on Twitter or on Facebook, so that, let me just give you a use case. If somebody was to click on a Facebook organic post for Nike shoes, and then 3 days later they click on a Facebook exchange retargeting ad, 2 days later they click on a Google ad and they actually convert there. Well, a lot of times that's not attributed back to that organic post, and it's difficult for community managers to be able to get budget from their companies to leverage tools like this that they need to be more effective and owned. And so what we're giving back to Shoutlet or any other owned provider is revenue and conversion data. So now the community managers can actually optimize based on the bottom line, not just engagement metrics that maybe something's engaging, but it's not actually generating revenue. So as you all heard, probably IBM reported that they got 0 referrals from Twitter and 0.68% referral from Facebook between Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And I think we all know that that's absolutely impossible, because I know that I tweeted and Facebooked about sales and different things myself. But what's happening is, and I can only conjecture, is that IBM is using a last click attribution methodology, which nowadays it's a poor way to measure your campaign. So I think advertisers have to start looking at their campaigns a little more holistically and leveraging different attribution models, which is what we're doing to give credit to those owned posts, those impressions that individuals are actually seeing ads on Facebook, not clicking, but then converting somewhere else. So it's just, I think, the last couple of years it's been, I know I need to get on social, I know I need to be there, I don't really know, if it's working, I don't know how to measure it, it's tough to explain it to my boss that I need to hire all these people. And I think in 2013, this is really going to be the year that everybody's starting to figure out that you can actually measure this and you can prove revenue. And I'll let somebody else talk now, but I will go over the case study that we did for a large retailer and give some metrics on that.
Erin, you're the only brand up here. Are you buying what we're saying? Is it possible to have this many technology vendors working with one company?
We have a lot of technology vendors that we use, actually, and it's very challenging. And I, in a dream world, I'd have it all wrapped up into one place, but it's not really realistic for us because we have a different data vendor and different web behavior or web analytics vendor, and those are things that are going to stay, but. I luckily work for a company that is very rooted in data. We have 100 million households on our database, and 800, I average of 800 data points per person. And I'm so happy to say that we're getting a lot of the web data finally into the database. We've had some of the traditional things in there before from online, but even the last couple of months we've started to get the social data added in through either our authentication, the social sign-in piece, as well as traffic metrics. And I'm thrilled to be able to say that I am able to tie that back to revenue, and that helps with trying to get budget and things like that. So I'm actually looking forward to having those conversations for the next fiscal year, because I have something to go in with to say it does matter. Us spending time in these channels does matter. We luckily do have a lot of owned media. That's what we do. We're a content creator, and so we've got that part going pretty well. But turning that into a combination with paid and earned, and showing results from that, from either subscriptions or people buying other products, or even spending more time on our sites or with us in social, allows us to create more advertising programs and bring revenue back to the company. So it is possible. It's not easy. I'm not going to lie to you and say, snap your fingers and it's done. But if you can get the right people in the right places within your company to believe in that and start to get the projects going, it is possible to do.
And Brian, what do you have to say about all this?
All this? Yeah. Well, I think, so I'm sort of earned media obsessed, I guess. And I think as I hear each of these comments, I think what's really interesting is thinking about, so how do we kind of look at earned media as sort of a unit of measurement that we can sort of apply to all these different fascinating tactics that we can run. So just an example is we work with a lot of publishers, a lot of media companies, and kind of similar to the example that Guy from Twitter was talking about earlier, is where you can use sort of earned media as this really fascinating metric to assess things that maybe truly have nothing to do with your digital campaign. So your latest article in a magazine, or your latest reality TV show, a character that you're introducing in episode 7 or something. And then you can sort of start to use your earned media to understand how is that person, that storyline, that piece of content resonating far, far, far beyond, your Facebook campaign, things like that. And then sort of tie that all together with the folks from the database team, the folks from the web analytics team, things like that, just to make much smarter decisions about where you're going to put your money and who you're going to partner with and things like that. So we get really excited about this notion that you can start to view the whole world through this lens of earned media and just make smarter decisions everywhere you go through sort of your day as a brand.
Are you guys doing any work with promoted retweets?
Well, we do something kind of cool where we use custom audiences with Facebook, and then what you can do is kind of zero in on folks that are really core to sort of core to generating the earned media for your brand. We call them advocates. A lot of people call them influencers, whatever you want to call them. And you can start to buy paid media to sort of activate those folks or reactivate people that haven't been participating in sort of the conversation in a while, things like that. And so we're looking to sort of broaden that into other platforms as well.
Has anyone here heard of the promoted retweet besides Guy? Yeah. So this is a perfect example of earned and paid coming together, and I think I've found it to be one of the most effective advertising tools. It's when one of your influencers or advocates tweets something really positive about you, and let's say they have 100,000 followers that are in your target market, you can then get their permission, they sign off on it, and you can pay to promote their tweet. So in everyone's timeline that you're targeting it to in your entire target market, they're seeing this person, this influencer's tweet. But on the bottom, it'll just say promoted by your brand. And that's really taking great earned media and amplifying it in a much larger, more powerful way. And I'm sure you guys are all doing a lot of great stuff to measure the effectiveness of that, right? Patience?
Yeah, definitely. Another thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is the sales funnel in the cycle. And understanding how all of this plays together. I mean, how many of you have heard somebody say, social just doesn't convert as well as my search campaigns? Probably most of you. And that's probably true if you're thinking about where somebody went directly after they clicked and actually purchased, right? So a lot of times that does happen on search channels. But Facebook never claimed to be a bottom of the funnel channel. And so I think there were some unreal expectations around Facebook and social advertising to start out with. Now there's different ad units that Facebook and I believe Twitter are coming out with that mitigate the issues for direct response advertisers that now perform better, like FBX and custom audiences. And so as far as measurement, it really goes beyond. It goes beyond just making sure that you understand where to put your budget. It's really understanding the whole program. And yes, you have a search campaign. Yes, you've got great content. Now you're doing paid. They all need to work together, and you need to be figuring out how they're working to affect each other, right? So if you have a search campaign, chances are if you run a pretty significant social campaign, those conversions are going to go up on your search side. And so that's what we aim to do, is to be able to illuminate that value of social media where you weren't able to measure that before. And so now you can actually allocate budget to social media if you weren't before, even though people convert on your search, because it affects it. It might not be intuitive, but that's the way it's working, and that's the new way that we're trying to get people to start thinking about their campaign.
Providing that context of where a brand's community sits within their funnel is incredibly enlightening for those brands to know that they may be putting out own content posts out on Twitter and on Facebook, and that person may convert 14 or 28 days later, that person is a buyer, gives that social team the credibility to go back and ask their bosses for budget to do more and to do more amplification, to do more efforts around that, to know that half that community or three-quarters of that community has contributed their email to your email list. Those are all great metrics that help those brands really figure out that they're part of that community, is a valuable community for them, and it could be impactful to the overall ecosystem.
While we're still on measurement, I just wanted to talk a little bit about a case study that we had a large retailer actually beta the integration that Shoutlet and Kenshoo just recently completed. And the case study is out online if you guys go search for the Kenshoo Shoutlet case study recently. But it was interesting because this client is using Kenshoo for search, Kenshoo for social, Shoutlet for owned. So there's several different vendors in the mix here. And they did a test for 2 months, and they were posting 5 to 6 times a day. And I wrote down some numbers because I'm terrible at remembering numbers. But it drove, this program proved that those owned posts drove 85,000 web visits. 42% of their posts resulted in sales and revenue. And when they amplified these posts to desktop and mobile newsfeed through page post ads, there was a 5 times revenue lift is what they got from that. And so Kenshoo's come out with some new metrics now, revenue per post and revenue per click. And this is what I was talking about, what we're giving back to Shoutlet. And so this company found that each organic post generated $4.90 per click, and it was in the thousands range per post. So this is something that we backed out to attribute to just the owned posts where that started. And we're attributing based on how many times a user clicked on organic posts. So we tried to dedupe as much as possible from where things started in search, and owned just played a small portion in that. And so it really, really illuminated, and they got 34 times the ROI. So it was significant, and we got a great quote from the head of social media there just saying, this is the first time it really illuminated the value of this for us. And we found that the video page posts perform, or the photo post perform the best. I mean, I think we all know a little bit about that. But it was really, really good to actually see this in action, that it's working. And I think, there are several companies out there now trying to do this and connect it. And it's really just nice to know that it's actually working and there's value in it.
Yeah, we have, again, partnered with Kenshoo, but we have also a lot of other open analytics. So the tracking is so relevant, as Patience has mentioned. 2013, you need to be able to track what's going on. You should be able to come back with relevant data. And, the owned portion is growing into the whole social enterprise. It's going throughout all the departments, and it's coming together. And with this relevant data, you have the ability to get a lot more budgets, and I think it's really exciting, for us in the social space.
I would say, I think that your point about making sure that, especially being able to attribute to not just the last click but the first click, or sometime along that funnel, that's been really important to us. My team does oversee social as well as paid search and all that, and we have decent budgets on the paid search side. But because my team is structured, not people that just do social or one of the other channels like email, they're really co-roles. So I have an acquisition team and I have an engagement team, and they're focused on all of the digital channels for those things. And I'm seeing a lot of change even within the team right now to say, we're spending money in search, to drive registrations, quality registrations to the site, so that they come back through email. And our acquisition team is thinking more about, how do I get more people connected through Facebook and logged in through Facebook so that we can see that data. Even if the conversion isn't as high in some cases, it's a higher value customer to us longer term, we've shown with all of the data. So that's really sort of the funnel of paid, owned, earned. We are paying to bring people in on the hopes of owning them and having them coming back to our site. But having a more social person is more important to us than just the volume of people. And it's really exciting to me to have my team, talking about that on their own, and not me having to, to say it all the time too. They're really getting it, and it's showing in the numbers. I mean, we, like I said, just got some of our data connected into our database, and in some cases it's looking like, someone who is connected to us and visiting from Facebook, buys 25% more products from us than people who don't. So, and again, it's only certain cases that we're seeing they, seem to renew higher. It depends greatly on the brand, but it's really exciting to be able to put all of that together and to see the team really not thinking about it just as paid, owned, earned in the buzzwords, but seeing it, implemented in action, and it makes a lot of sense to them.
So what's the ultimate KPI for a publisher on social media, especially given that everyone is accessing social media on mobile, but publishers are really struggling to generate revenue from mobile visits to their website? What are you guys trying to achieve?
Great question. All of our brands have a little different metric depending on what some of their goals are. So in some cases, it's about reach, so that they can tell advertisers that they have they reach certain audiences. But we always caution them to make sure that it's not only about reach; it's also about the engagement. You can say you have a lot of fans or followers, but not having them be engaged with us doesn't really mean a lot. And I think that's a lot of why our advertisers come to us, because they do see that engagement, that earned part going on, and they want to participate with us there. But I will say, traffic back to the site, which is how we monetize a lot of things in terms of advertising, is still important to us. So mobile is a daily topic, and we're talking more about how we get mobile and video especially included in that. And video has been very big for us, and on mobile too. So
what I think is really interesting about that is when you think about, so the Kenshoo example is really cool and really interesting, but when you think about what do you do if you're a brand that doesn't necessarily monetize that easily online, which I think is a really common problem. I think Liz, if she's here, we were talking yesterday, and they dig up shipwrecks. It's going to be a little more challenging to find sort of an e-commerce ROI associated with shipwrecks, maybe like gold doubloons or something. So when you start hearing examples like what Meredith is up to, it's really interesting to think about how can you find other ways of attributing value to your participation in social, whether it's acquiring additional emails so you can do better own marketing, whether it's traffic to mobile, things like that. Just starting to look at I think a lot of times we get a little bit ROI obsessed from e-commerce because many of us come from sort of that digital e-commerce world. And sometimes I think it actually is a detriment because it doesn't necessarily apply if you want to sell Toyotas. It's hard to monetize that directly. And things get really muddled really fast.
I will say the other thing that has changed for us in the last year or two as a publisher is we're coming out with digital editions to our publications and things like that. So we finally have a product that is geared towards mobile, which is exciting. We finally have something that isn't just advertising, to show and monetize for mobile. So it's exciting and scary at the same time, but we're bridging into the new world. So
good. So I guess that's our half hour. But is that right, Kathy?
You have a little more time for a question or two if you'd like.
Yeah, I was going to open it up for questions now if anyone has any.
So, Joe Mandizi, editor-in-chief of Media Post, has a question.
Hi. Just going back to that promoted retweet. So, in that model, are the brands paying the users to do that? And if so, is it paid or earned, or is it perned?
So this is really a hot button topic, and as everyone probably remembers, the AP took a payment from Samsung to put out a tweet during CES to get some of its news out there. Now, that tweet was owned media for the AP, right? It was paid media for Samsung. But what didn't happen there was actually promoting that tweet. So only a certain percentage of the AP's followers saw that information about Samsung. Samsung could have paid again to promote that tweet, and what they really should have done is the promoted retweet, so that all of the people that they wanted to see it would just see a tweet from the AP. That's the AP's own content and Samsung's paid media, and then it would become earned media for both the AP and Samsung when people started retweeting it and replying to it and sharing it. It's not something Twitter advertises. You can't find it on their website, but if you meet with them and you ask enough questions and you spend some money, they tell you about it, and you'd be amazed by how effective it is.
Is that true, Guy? Wait, I think, do you want the mic for a minute? No.
Of course he doesn't.
No, you don't. Well, okay, what the? All right, we're just going to leave that as it is, but anyway.
I'll meet you in the parking lot.
Yeah. Other questions here? So I sort of I was interested in what Brian was just saying about the first of all, I want to talk to the woman with the shipwrecks, ROI problem. But I do wonder a lot about kind of what conversations you guys get into when the ROI is not really at the end of the day about dollars and cents. And it always disturbs me that brand awareness is fine if you're doing a Super Bowl spot, but it's somehow not fine if that's what your objective is on like Facebook or Twitter. So how do you kind of, not talk them out of ROI as a reasonable metric, but that's not really what we're trying to do here. So does anybody have a response to that?
Yeah, I can start with that because clients are constantly coming and saying what we're not seeing sales right now. But one of the big powers of social media is in the downstream sale. So, and there's a lot of data that shows engagement on social media, on Twitter, for example. If people reply to your tweets, many months later, they're going to buy from you, and there's a lot of information tying that back together. So it's not an easy sell, but brands really need to open up to the idea of purchase intent being established as step one in the sales funnel on social media, and then downstream there could be some not last click sales, but definitely sales attributed to it. I'm sure you guys.
Yeah, our clients track social profiles, so they're tracking everything that's going on their pages and on the earned, and they can go back within those social profiles and search for people that are potential influencers, and they can go and market to them off with email marketing or direct mail, but they can monitor what is going on and what are, they can track all the way down from maybe months, and if they did purchase. So they're figuring out who their influencers are, and they can monitor them for a lifespan and use that data to retarget to them.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
A lot of our clients, we talk to them, and the way it comes out is sort of an earned media impression is better than an owned media impression is better than a paid media impression. And so you start to kind of attribute value to sort of the way you interact with your audience in that way, and start to optimize to get, to skew the balance so that, unfortunately for so long, the only way to get attention was to buy it. And now, you can get attention through great content on your own channels. And ideally, if you do both of those things right, you'll get just a huge amount of additional outsized attention through earned.
Yeah, I mean, are there any clean ratios on that? Like, an earned is 5 times the worth of a paid, or does it really vary by objective and all that kind of thing? It would be nice if it was a neat answer to that question.
Yeah, one more thing. I think the difference between social to when your end goal is ROI or if it's branding and awareness is the one thing you get from social is a persistent connection. So you're now connected to that person forever or until they follow you or unlike your page. Whereas search, if somebody comes, they search, they buy something that's great, you've got a conversion, if you can measure your conversions with online. But you can't remarket back to that person, right, unless they've come to your database or you're retargeting them with that search data. So it's nice that you're building a relationship with these people, and this is the only channel by which you can do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks to all of the panelists. Thank you very much. Give them a round of applause, please. So the next session is going to be a little different. Oh, yes, Ken, catamarans. Okay, Ken didn't want me to forget that we still have room on the catamaran, and the catamaran is the best of the activities to network on, and it also comes with its own cooler of free beer, apparently. So if you wish to catamaran, you should make your way out there and get yourself signed up. So is that good, Ken? Okay, free beer. That's all you need to know. Our next session, we're going to first start off with a brief presentation by Joan Fitzgerald of ComScore. It's interesting how much social TV has come up today. Guy had some great statistics about it. It's obviously a very keen interest to marketers, and I'm always very, around the time of the Super Bowl and the Grammys, I'm always just amazed at how like lacking in experience it now would be if social platforms didn't exist to, make snarky comments about the commercials. What would I do? So Joan is going to first give us some a brief presentation about some of the latest stats from ComScore on this. She's in charge of all the cross-platform initiatives at ComScore, and her title is the Senior VP of Customer Strategy and Product Marketing. And then we're going to have two people, Jason Hawk and John Mitchell, come up here, and they're going to do a little bit of a debate about what they see as the future of social TV. And we'll be doing one of these debates each day on a different platform. So first, why don't you start, Joan? Thanks.
Great. Thanks very much. I don't have a computer in front of me, so I am going to have to do a bit of turning to tell you what's on these slides, since I didn't make a copy of the presentation. I usually have my computer right in front. But thanks so much for joining me in this presentation. By way of background, I worked for 2 decades in the traditional television industry before being hired by ComScore to lead their television and cross-media measurement initiatives. And right now is really the time to be in television, as far as I'm concerned, because finally, I hate this word, but it really seems to be coming true. Finally there does seem to be a convergence between the digital world and the television world that's being enabled by technology, such as a lot of the technology by the people in the room here, but also other forms of technology that we really haven't talked a lot about today. So before launching into just a few facts about some of the leading indicators of social TV, I do want to call one of these technology innovations to your attention. When I was at CES this year, I met with some of the television set manufacturers. And what the television set manufacturers are doing with their smart TVs, which are going to be most of the television sold in the U.S. going forward, is they're incorporating automatic content recognition technology in these TVs. That's ACR. And what that means is that automatic content recognition technology can create a fingerprint of what's being played on the TV, and then the Wi-Fi connection with the television itself can be used to send that data back to a database that says, aha, that's the Big Bang Theory, that's The Closer, that's the Emmy Awards, whatever the consumer is watching, so that it enables us to feed content to the television itself or to a tablet or another kind of handset device that is information that's kind of extra bonus content for the television program. So this kind of capability that we really have never had before is going to become a reality either this year or within my prediction in about the next 2 years. So it's a very, very exciting time to be in TV. But let's talk a little bit, if I can get my remote doesn't seem to be forwarding here, guys. Oh, it is, okay. So what I'm going to show you is just a couple of facts and trends about sort of these leading indicators to social TV. The mobile social networking and online video are really where all of this comes together. So looking at mobile, I mean, we all know this, but it's pretty dramatic when you look at a graphic like this. The graphic to the left is mobile smartphones, and the graphic to the right is the resurgence of tablets. And what you've got is that there's been about 30 million smartphones even purchased in the last year. And when you look at tablets, how quickly tablets have taken hold. There are now 48 million tablet owners in the U.S., and that 48 million, it took mobile smartphones 10 years to reach that number. So we have just embraced and adopted these mobile technologies. When you look at mobile video usage, this is where sort of we begin to talk about social TV. When you look at mobile video usage, mobile video usage as a percentage has basically doubled in the past year. And where is that growth coming from? As you might expect. It's coming from young adult males, young adult females, and teens are the primary drivers of growth in the consumption of mobile video. Again, when you look at breaking out mobile video use into heavy, medium, and light quadrants, about 14% of mobile video users use mobile video almost every day. And when you look at the demographic breakout, as you might expect about 3/4 of those are young adults, and 2/3 of those are male. So there's a demographic emerging with mobile video that can be a harder to reach demographic on other types of media, particularly traditional TV. Here's another way that we know that mobile devices are really powering this new generation of entertainment content and advertising opportunity, and that's the share of overall web usage that's coming from mobile devices. And as you can see, that through 2011 and into 2012, we're at about 13% of total web traffic is being consumed on mobile devices today. Apps. We talked a little bit about apps today. They're very important. They comprise a lot of some content providers' interaction by consumers, and it's about 4 of every 5 minutes spent on mobile phones mobile smartphones is from an app. Let's take a little bit of a look at social media. I'm probably not going to tell you anything new in this part. It's kind of what you'd expect, but Facebook continues to dominate the social media space. They're a very, very important provider, and there are many other social networks out there